With the rise of from software games like Elden Ring, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, and Sekiro have been a total blast in the past few years, even granting them the Game of the Year awards. Miyazaki has brought the Souls formula ever since the PS3 era, surviving two generations of consoles and the foremost still evolving, which has made a huge fanbase of players that enjoy these kind of games from all over the world. Even if they're not made for everyone, they're still pretty popular for a reason, and that is because they're very challenging. But the case is in this. Today we're talking about the game that started everything in the franchise. Yes, you know which one it is. We'll be talking about Demon Souls. As you know by the title of the video, we'll be talking about both versions, the remake from the PS5 console and the original from the PS3 console. Both games are great in their own way, but how many differences are there? We're going to check that out. First of all, Demon Souls was originally released in 2009 for Japan and America, then in 2010 for Europe and the rest of the world for the PlayStation 3. It was developed by Revelation from Software and published by Sony. A few years later, Sony decided to develop a remake with a hand of Bluepoint as the first PS5 exclusive launch. Bluepoint is also known for the Shadow of the Colossus remake, although From Software wasn't directly involved in this remake. There were still a few From Software members that worked on the remake, and also half of the team that worked on Bloodborne's soundtrack were also behind the Demon Souls remake soundtrack. The world of Demon Souls brings us to the dark world of the Kingdom of Politeia. According to history, due to a misuse of the magic known as Soul Arts, Politeia was attacked by the Old One. After that, the world was nearly consumed by the magical deep fog and the soul-eating demons it created. The Old One was eventually put to slumber. King Alan, Politeia's ruler, restored his Soul Arts, awakening the Old One and his demon army again. Politeia is now consumed by demons and humans without souls turning into insane monsters that kill everything that stands in the way. And then there's a player. We adventure ourselves in search of the Nexus, but in the way in we just get killed, making us travel and get imprisoned in the Nexus. In order to live, we are given a task that consists in killing demons, restoring a soul and human figure. We are a slayer of demons, and as we progress, we'll be receiving that title as we kill more bosses or demons. The more souls we get, the better, but that also implies other consequences and moral questioning with ourselves. We'll meet Maiden in Black. She's the one that helps the player get stronger by using souls. She became a demon only to aid the demon slayer, so that way the old one goes back to slumber. And Boletaria is saved from the engulfing fog. Depending on what ending you choose, things might be a little different. That is, the game level design varies from the world, although it is a linear level design. For example, every world you travel in, it has a dead end, except for one, which includes the final boss. In the first world, what's known as Archstone of the Small King is not that tough, but it can be annoying due to the amount of tough soldiers it has and the dragons that are gatekeeping areas. In World 2, Archstone of the Barrow King, enemies are resistant to a lot of physical attacks, making the only way to kill them is using magic or piercing weapons. In World 3, Archstone of the Tower Queen is kind of a labyrinth, closed spaces and a bit punishing if you mess up because of the mind flyers around the area. They can kill you in 2 hits, also most of the enemies are resistant to magic. World 4, Archstone of the Shadowman is the one I hate the most due to its really close spaces after the adjudicated boss, and there's also aggressive skeletons and storm beasts. Although the bosses we fight in this one are the most interesting and unique bosses I've seen in a Souls game. I mean, fighting a blind hero is kinda cool boss design to be honest. War 5. Archstone of the Chieftain is one of the easiest since the enemies are weak to all kind of powerful damage and bosses are kinda easy as well, as long as you properly level up. The bad thing is that the whole area is filled with plague and poison lakes. If one of the enemies catches you off guard, it will unleash rapid attacks causing you to slow down and cancel your movements. Every Archstone is unique in their own way and have their own different teams. Well, at least that's what I like to think. Also, in every Archstone, upgrade items were only obtainable in the specific Archstone, depending on what you were looking to farm for. There was supposed to be a sixth playable Archstone in the game. It was broken under unknown circumstances. It was supposed to lead us to the real known as the Northern Limit, which was a snowy fortress given to the giants of the far north. The fortress was home to large amounts of strange mixtures of men and beasts. From software never released it due to time constraints. However, through a description of the game, you can still find a lot of news content about the Northern Limit, such as maps, character models, texture materials, tests, etc. These just tell us that they tried their best to bring it on, but unfortunately they couldn't. The unused map is considered to be the frigid outskirts in the Dark Souls 2 DLC, Crown of the Ivory King, after being, of course, modified and produced. It's not the same thing as the original Demon Souls was planning to. It's not Northern Limit in a Dark Souls mainline game, but more of a use for certain map that couldn't be used back then. We'll talk about Dark Souls 2 and its DLC some other time. There's also a theory that says the demons originate from the northern limit, causing the Axstone to break from the monumental, trying to seal it off. According to in-game lore, it wasn't really originated, but the land was so overrun that the Axstone was broken to seal it away. The vision that Miyazaki had was that the player had to earn the victory through learning from their mistakes, hence why the difficulty was higher than usual video game. It is because the game wanted to be punishing if you did things wrong, but also allowing you to solve the errors in any way the player wants, as long as it was done correctly so you will not fail again. We have 5 key criteria which the difficulty level is judged. We want any player to be able to clear any obstacle simply by learning from mistakes and paying close attention. Then the reasons for failure must always be clear and understandable. Every problem must have multiple solutions, so that players can tackle it whichever way they want. The game's controls can never be a factor from which difficulties derive. And finally, we want to make sure that there is the possibility for miracles to happen, those magical moments that spread histories outside of the confines of the game world. So anyway, you may be asking, what's new between the Demon Souls remake? Well, Demon Souls gameplay is clunky, but it had some cool animations. There was no plunge attack like in Dark Souls 1, but there was something more interesting that newer Soulsborne don't have. Bolting. Exactly what you're hearing. This game lets you bolt specific edges or fences depending on where you are. It's not that exciting, but it's a cool mechanic despite the limitations it had. Besides that, the original Demon Souls gameplay didn't age well as most of Soulsborne games. It sounds stupid, the gameplay feels outdated, but it's because this game is 14 years old and it didn't have a AAA budget. Yet it managed to capture a great action RPG experience to players despite the janky hat. When it comes to the remake, it did change a few things, like the gameplay no longer feels clunky and janky. There is also a few things like being able to roll in more than 4 directions. The gameplay is still kinda the same though, stopping the player whenever you want to use an item for a short time. There's also unique animations for every weapon, although these are just mere cosmetic changes that don't affect attack speed whatsoever. character and enemy models have been reworked, though the AI wasn't changed at all in some bosses and enemies, making them look dumb or ruin the experience despite all the graphical and detail changes. Still, they'll find the way they are. The remake includes new weapons, items, and gear, although a few of these are locked behind a paywall called Deluxe Edition and pre-order bonus, which comes with a full digital soundtrack of the remake. The following items were the Politarium Royalty Set, the Red-Eyed Knight Set, and the Riddle Blade. Those new items were only obtainable through Deluxe Edition purchases and the Reaper Sizey as the pre-order bonus. But Bluepoint made them really bad and unupgradable, so players that didn't want to pay don't get upset because literally those new items are useless after the first part of the game. It also enhances the online multiplayer, letting us play within 4 to 6 players, similar to what was done in the Dark Souls 1 remaster. Carry capacity changed in the remake, meaning your healing grass has a limit of carry now, casting a balance for PvP matches, also adds more powerful versions for the healing grass. While in the original game you could carry as many as you wanted with no limit of carry at all. The game also gives you the freedom to play the original camera collision angle or a feat that is set default on the remake. Few other things that have been added like different camera filters, photo mode, haptic feedback for the PS5 controller, faster loading times, and small touches such as Axton not having inside the real world names. And besides the graphics and very cool details it has, were placed to put a more cinematic aspect to the game and the PS5. Also, enemies and bosses can destroy environment objects. Doesn't affect anything, but they are still added for a mere cosmetic and detailed manner, since the game had to look outstanding for being the first PS5 exclusive release. The game also adjusted rate drops and mechanics for more balance, also adds new secrets which is related to previous mention that reward us with new loot. There's also new options in-game that let the player customize your character after having made it already, just for 25,000 souls. And by the same amount of souls, it can let you seek forgiveness or activate the fracture mode. This mode lets you play the game in a harder difficulty. You can also store your character, letting you swap characters in and out of the world whenever you want, which means you can store your builds. Now comes the best part, the soundtrack. There has been a polemic around the fanbase raging out the remake because of this drastically change in the soundtrack. The remake soundtrack was completely re-recorded with an orchestra consisting of 120 members, the score being by Shunsuke Kida. There was also a full choir complete with pipe organ. That doesn't sound so bad, right? Considering most of the soundtrack team also work in Bloodborne soundtrack. But when we compare the original soundtrack to the remake, there sure is a huge difference and gives two different atmospheres. And honestly, it is refreshing to see the change of the music considering this is not remaster. Not telling the budget was also way higher, so of course it will be different. The original soundtrack sounds more eerie and unsettling, gives you a weird feeling, yet you feel at ease because the music base uses a lot of silent spaces. The brass also gives you a totally different vibe from what you will hear in other Soulsborne games. Meanwhile, the remake it is different, changes the pace of things and make it more dramatic and uses a lot of much more instruments that could be way more fitting in the world that Demon's Souls is based on. But first, we'll compare the soundtrack and I'll give a detailed review and opinion over the topic later on. Let's start with one of the big changes you will hear in a boss fight, and one that was highly criticized for its change, the Tower Knight theme. know there's a lot of difference, but personally I like both of them the same way. The remake sounds over-exaggerated sometimes, and the original sounds simple. But that's what it makes it awesome. Either way, the remake doesn't completely destroy the original's work because they use the same lead motifs, just arranged in another way and different tempos. Let's put another example with the Judicator theme and the Lichmonger theme, since these two tracks doesn't change drastically as the other tracks do. In these ones, the original sounds like Banjo-Kazooie from Hell, while the remake it doesn't separate too much from the bass, but it does sound much more like Bloodborne, including lyrics like Sanguine and Bestia, of what I could hear in the Lichmonger theme. All tracks are great overall. There's not a single track that I dislike in the whole game, be it remake or original. It does change a lot of the atmosphere, but it's a different way to see the game. The music doesn't state if the game is good or bad. Saying the game is bad because of the soundtrack is 100% wrong. It may have its flaws, it may not be of everyone's liking, but it's not a mediocre product whatsoever. You can be nostalgic, but you can just reject a new imagined product just because it doesn't sound like you remember. If you prefer the original, go play the original. If you like the remake, then play the remake. Both games are great. Again, it's not a remaster. This game is a remake. And for a remake, it's pretty faithful to the original. It's still the same game, kinda the same gameplay, same bosses, same history, except the art direction is a bit different, but overall it's a great work made by Bluepoint. Could have been better and had more from software style, yeah, but it's not bad. There are other remakes of the Final Fantasy VII remake that changes the history completely, adding much more things, but the soundtrack is kinda faithful to the original, except for a bit changes. being between as a rearrangement and a remix. Yet it wasn't received as a completely bad remake because that's what it is, a remake, rebuilt from scratch of what the original project also was, not an enhanced version or remaster. I honestly love Demon Souls. I love every moment of it, even if some parts were a bit janky. I give this game a 9 out of 10 for both versions, appreciating the game as a piece of art. It's still pretty solid for a 14-year-old game. Personally, it's a 10 out of 10 for me. But yeah, that was all for this video. I wish I could have out more and talk about literally everything made for this game, but otherwise that would have been an hour long. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to let me know in the comments if there was anything more to be added or not, or what's your take on this. Thanks for watching me till the end. A big comment and a thumbs up is a great support for me. Have a great one, fellow viewer, and I wait your arrival for the next video. Until the next time, bye bye!